You're watching The 7 from WATE 6 on your side.
Good evening, I'm Bo Williams, and welcome to The 7. Let's get a look at the big 7 stories right now. Topping the list for us, Election Day is here, and here are some quick reminders for those of you who are about to head out the door to cast your ballot. Unlike early voting, you have to vote at your designated polling location, and don't forget you need to bring an ID. It needs to be an ID issued by the state, like a Tennessee driver's license or a federal ID. One of the big races we are watching, there are no Democrats in the running in the Knox County Sheriff's race, just two Republicans, former Sheriff J.J. Jones and current Sheriff Tom Spangler. The winner of the primary will likely go on to be Knox County's next sheriff. 6 on your side's Elizabeth Kubel has been following the sheriff's race closely for us, joining us now live from the Cedar Bluff Middle polling location tonight. Elizabeth.
Hi, Bo. Polls close in 1 hour, and as you mentioned, one of the biggest races is the one for Knox County's next sheriff, with the current sheriff facing off against the former one. So you've got Sheriff Tom Spangler, as we said, the current sheriff. He was here at Cedar Bluff Middle School earlier today. I know we've got some video of him shaking hands with people. I want to show that video to you right here. Sheriff Spangler has led the department since 2018, and remember, a chunk of that time has been through the coronavirus pandemic. So I asked him today what he is most proud of.
That our men and women kept going. And I give them all the credit. I give them the credit every day, because those are the people that are out there working and doing the job. But, you know, when it got tough, our guys and gals didn't quit. And, you know, we gave them the equipment to make sure that they were protected during the pandemic and what have you. But I told them, I'm not going to mandate anything on you. But what I do ask you to do is make sure that if somebody ask you to either wear a mask or something, or you go into an establishment, you know, just follow what they request you to do. But I wasn't about to mandate on them. But what we did, we kept answering the calls. We didn't stop. And I thought that was important for our men and women, that they stepped up and did that. And I was so grateful and honored that they were able to do that.
And I also did try today to connect with former Sheriff J.J. Jones for an interview. We've got some video here of him as well that I want to show you right here. He told me that he wasn't feeling well today, that he was heading home and really not up to doing an interview with me, even virtually, or sending in written answers to my questions. But I do want to read you a statement that he made when he first announced his run. Quote, "I have spent my entire adult life in law enforcement serving the citizens of Knox County. I am running for sheriff because morale is at a 40-year low and officers are fleeing KCSO in droves. I am committed to restoring morale, and it is my promise never to ask nor use the men and women of the Knox County Sheriff's Office as political pawns in front of the Knox County Commission or the public," end quote. Of course, we will continue to follow this race for you and let you know the results as soon as we know them tonight. Bo?
All right, Elizabeth, thank you very much. Next here on the Big 7, it's also primary election day in Anderson County, but no Democrats are on the ballot. 6 on your side's Wes Cooper shows us how things are going.
The election administrator here in Anderson County reports voter turnout has been low. He estimates that it's down about 30 to 40% from normal. Mark Stevens says it's somewhat expected. Turnout would be low considering not a lot of elections are being contested today. The ones that are include court clerk, road superintendent, general sessions judge, divisions 1 and 2, as well as several county commission seats. Essentially, every position on the ballot except the sheriff will be determined today. The winners will move on to the county general election in August and will be unopposed besides the sheriff.
They really need to understand that the folks that they elect at the local level will have more impact on their daily lives, and that's what you try and emphasize to our voters and our the electorate, that every election is important.
There's still about an hour to vote. Polls close at 8. We will continue to monitor the results as they come in. In Anderson County, I'm Wes Cooper for WATE 6 News on your side.
Next on the Big 7, Roe versus Wade igniting the nation once again after an explosive leaked draft reveals that the Supreme Court could overturn abortion legislation. Roe v. Wade was established in 1973. The Supreme Court then cited that abortion is a constitutional right. According to the leaked draft, the Supreme Court now seeks to overrule the old opinion. We should note the Supreme Court says this leaked draft is not final, but what would happen if Roe v. Wade were overturned? Well, Tennessee abortion providers say this would effectively end abortion in Tennessee. We heard from CEO Ashley Cofield from Planned Parenthood of Tennessee and North Mississippi about what this could mean for Knoxville. This as they continue to rebuild following a devastating fire earlier this year.
And we are absolutely rebuilding in Knoxville. We are working with our design team right now to come up with a new building. We don't have, before we had an older building that we were building an addition onto. So now the entire structure is gone. It was completely destroyed. So we are starting from scratch, but we are absolutely rebuilding. Patients in East Tennessee will continue to need us, whether abortion is legal or not, for many other services.
Right now, investigators believe the fire was set intentionally. Of course, we'll continue to follow that investigation for you. Next here on the Big 7, Tennessee is one of several states that trigger laws which would immediately ban all or most abortions if Roe v. Wade is overturned by the Supreme Court. We spoke with Tennessee lawmakers who say they are divided on the issue. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have strong opinions on how this may be handled within our state.
Conservative movement has been very passionate about being a voice for the voiceless and defending the unborn. And so there is a real sense of hope with the possibility of this being overturned.
We know that we will never stop abortions, but what we will do is stop safe abortions. What I want to see here in Tennessee is for them to keep abortion right.
Again, we should point out the Supreme Court says the leaked document does not represent the court's final decision on Roe versus Wade. We will, of course, continue to follow this closely for you. Next here on the Big 7 today, the Tennessee Supreme Court heard arguments in the case of Knoxville versus Hulu and Netflix. We first told you about this case back in 2020. Knoxville is among hundreds of Tennessee municipalities suing the two video service giants over unpaid franchise fees mandated by state law. The lawsuit claims Netflix and Hulu are subject to the law because they use broadband located, at least in part, in public right-of-ways across the state. Now, this morning, representatives for the two streaming services each spoke questioning whether they should be fined. The Netflix representative says the city's argument goes back to how the franchise's fee law is interpreted, saying he does not agree with the city's interpretation of the law. Meanwhile, a Hulu spokesperson argued that the streaming service is not responsible for delivering content through public right-of-way, saying that responsibility falls on individual internet service providers instead. After the arguments concluded, the court adjourned, saying this case will be revisited in September. Next on the Big 7, we have new details regarding a double homicide in Greene County, where a teenage suspect has allegedly admitted to killing a child and his grandmother. You know, we've been following this double homicide on Old Snaps Ferry Road since last Monday. As we've told you, 59-year-old Sherry Cole and her grandson, 7-year-old Jesse Allen, were found outside of their home by Greene County deputies. The teen suspect arrested on the scene. Court documents reveal the teen confessed to police that he struck both victims multiple times with a hammer, killing them. He also allegedly confessed to planning the act that afternoon, Sunday, April 24th. The documents call the act, quote, premeditated and intentional. District Attorney Dan Armstrong is petitioning to have the 16-year-old tried as an adult, but as Johnson City Defense Attorney Grace Stutter explains, in juvenile cases, results of a mental evaluation could prevent a transfer to adult court.
I never want to diminish a crime because it's obviously there are victims here and it's a very, very serious crime. But let's also look at the child and see what's going on here. This is not normal behavior for a 16-year-old. Is there a mental component? What was home life like?
Stutter is not the suspect's defense attorney, but works juvenile cases often. She says if kept in juvenile court, the sentence for the suspect will be more focused on rehabilitation. The juvenile suspect will come before a judge next week on May 12th. The judge is also expected to set a date for a hearing to determine if the teen will be tried as an adult. Rounding out the Big 7, this week marks 1 year since the East Tennessee Valley Crime Stoppers launched an effort to fight crime in our area. As of yesterday, the local Crime Stoppers chapter has received more than 2,200 tips, mostly about illegal drug sales. The East Tennessee Valley Crime Stoppers says these tips have led to 54 arrests. Plus, we're told nearly $12,000 in reward money has now been approved for tipsters. The East Tennessee Crime Stoppers is a way for you to submit anonymous tips about crime in your neighborhood. There are several ways to leave tips with local Crime Stoppers chapter, including the P3 Tips app, online, and over the phone.